in the shadowy heart of Istanbul's Grand Bazaar, where silks whisper secrets and spices hide daggers, bluff British tycoon Sir Reginald Harrington seals a midnight fortune in priceless carpets, only to be stabbed through the heart by a stolen Turkish blade. Coins spill like stars, alibis tangle like Persian knots, and suspects swirl. A vengeful soldier from Gallipoli's graves, a jealous Russian widow craving his ring, a desperate partner fearing ruin, a sly Turkish dealer double-crossed, and a loyal young secretary clutching his secret will. Enter mild-mannered Miss Jane Marple, summoned from her quiet English village, whose knitting needles unravel greed, grudge, and glamour in 30 seconds flat, exposing the killer in a confession that echoes from minarets to the misty Bosphorus. Chapter 1. An unexpected invitation in the tranquil village of Danby Dale, where the hedgerows bloomed with wild roses and the church bells tolled with gentle regularity. Miss Jane Marple sat in the bay window of her cottage, her needles clicking rhythmically over a pair of grey woolen socks destined for her nephew Raymond. The morning sun filtered through lace curtains, casting a soft glow on the polished oak table beside her, where lay a half-read copy of the Times and a saucer of birdseed for the robins that frequented her garden. Miss Marple was a woman of 72, slight of figure, with soft white hair neatly coiled at the nape of her neck, and eyes of a mild blue that belied the keen intelligence within. She had lived all her life in Danby Dale, observing its inhabitants with the quiet detachment of one who finds the world's mysteries mirrored in the simplest village affairs. A quarrel over a missing jam pot, a whispered scandal at the vicar's tea, or the sudden departure of the postman's wife, these were the threads from which she wove her understanding of human nature. The arrival of the postman, old Tom Price, with his bicycle basket brimming, broke the morning's peace. He touched his cap to her through the window, depositing a single letter on the hall table. Miss Marple rose, smoothed her sprigged cotton dress, and retrieved it. The envelope was heavy cream vellum, stamped with a Turkish crescent, and addressed in a handwriting she recognized at once. Elegant, slightly slanted, the script of Lady Edith Harrington. Settling back into her chintz armchair, Miss Marple slit the seal with her silver paper knife. The letter unfolded to reveal 3 closely written sheets. Danby Dale, my dearest Jane. It has been too long since we last met. Can it truly be 15 years since that delightful house party at Cheltenham? I think of you often, especially in these trying times. I write now from Istanbul, where Sir Reginald, my nephew, you recall, has established our family villa overlooking the Bosphorus. The air is balmy, the views sublime, but, oh, Jane, I am in dire need of your counsel. Reginald has invited a small party of his business, associates for a week's stay. Tensions simmer like a pot on the boil, disputes over silks and spices, whispers of unpaid debts, and glances that could curdle milk. Reginald himself seems oblivious, but I sense mischief afoot, something darker than mere commercial rivalry. Your eye for the follies of mankind, so sharp in our village tales, would be invaluable here. Come at once, I beg you. Discretion is paramount, no word to a soul. The steamer Eurus sails from Southampton on Friday next. I have arranged your passage and a maid to assist. With fondest regards and urgent hope, your affectionate friend, Edith Harrington. Miss Marple folded the sheets with deliberate care, her needles resuming their click-click as she pondered. Lady Edith, widow of Sir Henry Harrington the diplomat, and she had been contemporaries at Miss Lemon's academy in Bath, bonded by a shared fondness for whist and a mutual disdain for affectation. Edith had married into grandeur and followed her husband to postings in Cairo, Delhi, and now Istanbul, where Reginald had carved his fortune in Eastern trade. Travel abroad was a rarity for Miss Marple. Her last venture had been to London 5 years prior to attend a nephew's play. Yet the letter's tone, urgent, almost fearful, stirred her. Human nature, she murmured to herself, is much the same under minarets as under thatched roofs. A dishonest glint in the eye, a too quick smile. She rang for her companion, Miss Knight, a bustling woman of ample proportions, who managed the cottage with military efficiency. "Dora," said Miss Marple mildly, "pack my blue trunk. I am for Istanbul." Miss Knight gasped, her pince-nez slipping. "Istanbul, ma'am, the very ends of the earth, and whatever for?" "An old friend in need," replied Miss Marple, her gaze drifting to the garden where a robin pecked at the seed. "Pack warmly. The nights there can be chill, I'm told. And do include my knitting bag, the green one with the extra skeins." By Thursday, the cottage was secured, the vicar informed of her absence, and Miss Marple conveyed by motor car to Southampton. The Eurus loomed at the quay, a steel giant belching steam, its decks thronged with passengers in fur coats and feathered hats. A steward escorted her to a first-class cabin, where a vase of hothouse lilies awaited Edith's touch. As the ship cast off amid tooting horns and waving handkerchiefs, Miss Marple stood at the rail, watching England recede into the mist. The sea stretched vast and grey, but her mind was already alert, threading through possibilities. Who were these associates? What grudge simmered beneath the polite exchanges? In Danby Dale, she had solved the riddle of the poacher's snare by noting a maid's mismatched gloves. Here, in the spice-scented East, the clues would be no less subtle. 7 days later, as the Eurus nosed into the Golden Horn, the minarets of Istanbul pierced the dawn sky like ivory needles. Launch bore Miss Marple ashore, where Lady Edith waited on the crowded pier, elegant in a toque of violet silk, her face alight with relief. "Jane, my dear, you've come!" They embraced amid the babble of porters crying "Effendi!" and the scent of roasting chestnuts. "Edith, my dear," said Miss Marple, her voice steady as the carriage bore them through bustling streets, "tell me everything, from the beginning." And so, as the domes of Santa Sofia gleamed in the rising sun, Miss Marple's unexpected adventure truly began. Chapter 2. The Villa by the Bosphorus. The carriage rattled over the uneven cobbles of Istanbul's waterfront, its wheels splashing through shallow puddles left by the morning's drizzle. Miss Marple sat beside Lady Edith, her gloved hands folded neatly in her lap, while the air rushed in through the open window, thick with the tang of salt from the Bosphorus and the faint exotic perfume of jasmine from hidden courtyards. Opposite them, a stout Turkish driver urged on his pair of glossy bays, his fez tilted jauntily against the rising sun. The domes and minarets of the city unfolded like a watercolour painting. The slender silhouette of the Galata Tower, the majestic sweep of Santa Sofia, and beyond, the shimmering strait where Europe kissed Asia. Lady Edith, her violet toque slightly askew from the embrace at the pier, leaned forward with a conspiratorial whisper. "Jane, you cannot imagine the relief I feel. Reginald's guests arrived this afternoon, and already the atmosphere crackles like a storm over the Propontis. But first, our home, the Villa Eftal. It has been in the family since Grandfather Harrington traded for it in '89, after the Sultan's levy on English cottons. Miss Marple nodded, her mild blue eyes taking in the panorama. A fine prospect, Edith. And your nephew, Sir Reginald, how does he fare in this Eastern venture? Edith's lips tightened. Bluff as ever, dear Reginald. Silks from Bursa, spices from Izmir, carpets from Herike. He imports them by the shipload. But these associates, they bring shadows with their smiles. You shall see. The carriage crested a hill, and there it stood, the Villa Eftal, a vision of whitewashed stucco and red-tiled roofs clinging to the cliffside like a pearl against emerald. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, and bougainvillea cascaded in riots of pink and purple over wrought-iron balconies. A porticoed entrance yawned wide, flanked by marble columns carved with lotus motifs, a nod to the villa's Ottoman origins. As they alighted, a line of servants in embroidered waistcoats bowed low, and a young Greek maid, Maria, whisked away Miss Marple's trunk with a curtsy. Inside, the hall opened to a vaulted ceiling, frescoed with scenes of dervishes whirling in ecstasy. Persian rugs muffled their footsteps, and the air hummed with the scent of attar of roses from silver censers. Lady Edith led the way up a curved staircase to the guest wing. Your room, Jane, facing the straight, a balcony for your morning tea, and Maria to attend you. Miss Marple's chamber was a haven of comfort, a four-poster bed draped in mosquito netting, a writing desk inlaid with mother-of-pearl, and French windows giving on to that breathtaking view. She unpacked methodically, her knitting bag first, then a modest wardrobe of greys and lavenders, before descending to the morning room, where a silver tray bore simit pastries, olives, and a samovar of strong black tea. Sir Reginald Harrington burst in like a gust from the trades, a broad-shouldered man of 50 with a florid face, walrus moustache, and a tweed suit that seemed out of place amid the silks. Aunt Jane, by Jove, what a sight! Edith wrote of your coming. Dashed good of you to brave the briny for us old fogies. He pumped her hand vigorously, his laugh booming off the tiled walls. Reginald, my dear, Miss Marple replied with a gentle smile, it is a pleasure. Your aunt speaks highly of your enterprises. Enterprises, eh? More like a jolly good lark. He sank into a wicker chair, pouring tea with a splash. Silks finer than a Rajah's turban, spices that'd wake the dead. And tonight, a midnight jaunt to the Grand Bazaar. Sealing a deal on Anatolian carpets worth a king's ransom. You must join us, Aunt Jane. The heart of Istanbul beats there after dark. Before Miss Marple could demur, Lady Edith appeared in the doorway. Reginald, the guests. Their motor cars are at the gate. Sir Reginald sprang up. Righto! Introductions all round. He offered his arm to Miss Marple, and together they proceeded to the terrace, where a long table groaned under crystal decanters. Platters of Borek pastries stuffed with feta and spinach, and bowls of glistening dolma. The first to arrive was Mr. Victor Lang, Sir Reginald's partner, a wiry man in his 40s, with a sharp nose like a ferret's, and eyes that darted perpetually. His pinstripe suit hung loosely, as if tailored for leaner days, and a gold watch chain strained across his waistcoat. Reginald, old chap, he said, clasping hands with a forced joviality. This heat, positively infernal. And you, madam? He bowed to Miss Marple. Miss Marple, Mr. Lang, a relation of Sir Reginald's. Ah, the famous village sleuth, eh? Reginald's tales precede you." His smile did not reach his eyes. Next came Mrs. Elena Petrova, a Russian widow of voluptuous build, swathed in a gown of emerald chiffon that whispered against the tiles. Diamonds winked at her throat and ears, and her throaty laugh rolled like distant thunder as she air-kissed Lady Edith. "Darling Edith, and Sir Reginald, such a bear of a man." Her dark eyes appraised Miss Marple coolly. "The English rose among us tulips." Colonel Hugh Ramsay followed, ramrod straight in his khaki drill jacket, a retired soldier of 60 with a face seamed like old leather and a clipped military moustache. His hand gripped Miss Marple's with iron force. "Please, ma'am, served in the Dardanelles nasty business. This city's changed little since." Miss Lydia Thorne, Sir Reginald's secretary, was a slip of a girl, scarce 20, with mousy hair pinned severely and a pale frock that matched her watchful grey eyes. She hovered at Reginald's elbow, notebook in hand. "Good afternoon, Miss Marple. Shall I take dictation later?" Last, gliding in like a shadow, was Mr. Kemal Bey, the Turkish antiquities dealer, a suave figure in his mid-40s, dressed in a well-cut European suit with a silk cravat. His olive skin glowed under a neatly trimmed beard, and his black eyes held an inscrutable depth. "Offend him," he murmured, kissing Lady Edith's hand, then bowing to Miss Marple. "The honour is mine. Istanbul welcomes you." The party settled at table as servants circulated with trays of chilled raki and maize, tarama salata, hummus flecked with sumac, and skewers of succulent lamb kebabs grilled over charcoal. Conversation flowed like the Bosphorus current, light at first, then veined with undercurrents. Sir Reginald, carving a kebab with gusto, dominated. "Victor, old bean, those Bursa silks, prime stuff. What? We'll shift 'em in London before the week's out." Victor Lang speared an olive, his voice oily. "If the prices hold, Reggie. But these carpet weavers, Kemal, here's their kingpin, they're squeezing us dry. Debts unpaid, eh, Kemal?" Kemal Bey sipped his raki unperturbed, a faint smile playing. "Business is a carpet, Mr. Lang, woven tight. My weavers demand their due. Sir Reginald understands." Across the table, Mrs. Petrova leaned towards Colonel Ramsay, her fan fluttering. "Colonel, you who have seen battles, tell us of Gallipoli, such heroism." Her jewels caught the sun like fireflies. The colonel's jaw tightened. He pushed away his plate. "Heroism? Slaughter, madam. Turks fought like devils. Fair play to 'em. But betrayals? That's the rot." His gaze flicked to Sir Reginald, who suddenly found interest in his glass. Miss Lydia, buttering a simmet, interjected softly. "Sir Reginald, the inventory for tomorrow's deal, is it complete?" Her eyes lingered on him a fraction too long. Miss Marple, nibbling a dolma, observed it all with the detachment of one appraising a village cricket match. Victor's darting eyes suggested a man with ledgers unbalanced. Elena's flirtation masked something sharper. The colonel's stiffness bespoke old wounds. Lydia's pallor hinted at secrets confided. Kemal's calm was the poise of deep waters. And Reginald, bluff, yes, but with a shadow of unease in his laugh. As the sun dipped, painting the strait in molten gold, Sir Reginald rose, glass raised. "To tomorrow's fortune and tonight's adventure. 11 o'clock, we depart for the bazaar. Lanterns, mysteries, and carpets to beg a Croesus. Who's with me?" Glasses clinked amid cheers, but Miss Marple noted the hesitations. Victor's grimace, the colonel's grunt, Elena's throaty chuckle veiling a sigh. Lady Edith caught her eye, mouthing, "Thank you." dinner concluded with trays of baklava dripping honey and trays of Turkish delight dusted with pistachios. The party dispersed to dress, the women to powder their noses, the men to cigars on the balcony. Miss Marple retired briefly to her room, selecting a warm shawl and sturdy shoes. From her window, the Bosphorus murmured, ferries plying like water beetles. And the call to prayer echoed from a distant mosque. At 10:30, the household stirred. Motor cars purred at the gate, 2 sleek Fiats hired from Pera. Sir Reginald, in a linen suit and Panama hat, marshalled them. Aunt Jane with Edith and Lydia, Victor, Kamal and I in the lead, Colonel and Elena behind. The drive wound down twisting lanes, past caiques bobbing in the dark water, into the old city's moor. Street lamps flickered, casting pools of amber on veiled women and turbaned porters. The air grew heavier, laced with charcoal smoke and the sizzle of street kebabs. At 11 sharp, they entered the Grand Bazaar's arched gates, a cavern of 4,000 shops under vaulted domes. Lanterns swung from chains, illuminating stalls heaped with brass lamps, evil-eye amulets, and bolts of shimmering silk. Merchants in fezzes cried, "Buy, Effendi, best price!" Oud music twanged from a corner, and the throng pulsed, Turks, Armenians, Greeks, Europeans in evening dress. Sir Reginald led with purpose, weaving to the carpet merchant's quarter. "Kamal, your man awaits, Alatin Effendi. The deal seals at midnight." Miss Marple, arm linked with Lady Edith's, felt the night's pulse. Human nature, she mused, thrives in shadows, greed as universal as the stars above the domes. Little did she know how swiftly those shadows would claim a life. Chapter 3. Secrets in the Shadows. The Grand Bazaar enveloped the party like a living tapestry, its vaulted ceilings lost in a haze of lantern light and swirling incense. Miss Marple, her arm lightly linked with Lady Edith's, moved with the measured tread of one accustomed to village lanes rather than this labyrinth of commerce. The air was a symphony of sensations, the sharp bite of cumin from spice sacks piled like golden dunes, the musk of leather from saddles slung on hooks, the chime of silver bracelets as Armenian women haggled in low, urgent tones. Merchants' cries rose in a babble, "Hashish! Effendi! Lamp! Fine lamp for your harem!" mingled with the plaintive wail of a ney flute from a shadowed alcove. The throng pressed close, veiled figures gliding silently, porters bent under towering loads of copperware, and clusters of tourists in +4s, their faces flushed with the night's exotic thrill. Sir Reginald strode ahead like a general on campaign, his Panama hat bobbing above the crowd. "This way, chaps! A Latin stall! Finest Heraki weaves in all Anatolia!" Beside him, Mr. Victor Lang darted glances left and right, his ferret eyes appraising bolts of silk as if fearing ambush. Mr. Kamal Bey glided effortlessly, exchanging murmured greetings, in Turkish, with stall keepers who bowed low, their faces creasing in respectful smiles. Behind, Colonel Ramsay marched with military precision, his khaki jacket unbuttoned against the humid warmth, while Mrs. Elena Petrova swayed on his arm, her emerald chiffon whispering against the stone flags. Miss Lydia Thorne trailed close to Sir Reginald, her pale frock a ghost amid the colours, notebook clutched like a talisman. Miss Marple observed it all with quiet acuity. "Edith, my dear," she murmured, "this is no Danbydale fete, but the glances are much the same. Covetous, wary. Your nephew's deal, does it involve all?" Lady Edith's fan fluttered nervously. "The carpets, Jane. Rare prayer rugs, centuries old. Reginald and Kamal broker them to a London collector, Victor claims a share, but whispers say Reginald cut him out. And Elena, she fancies Reginald's fortune could redeem her jewels' debts. They paused at a spice merchant's stall, pyramids of saffron and paprika glowing like jewels under lantern glow. Sir Reginald scooped a handful of cloves, inhaling deeply. "Smell that, Aunt Jane? Worth its weight in gold." But Victor Lang sidled up to Kamal Bey, his voice a venomous hiss beneath the din. "Debts unpaid, Kamal. Reginald's signature on that Bursa consignment. You hold the chit, he dodges like a bazaar rat." Kamal's smile was a crescent moon, unmoved. "Patience, Mr. Lang. The carpet deal settles all tonight. Sir Reginald is a man of honour." Further on, amid trays of filigree jewellery, Mrs. Petrova detached from the Colonel, her throaty laugh drawing stares. "Colonel Ramsay, you stiff old oak! Loosen that moustache. Tell me, have you danced the horror under these domes?" She twirled, diamonds flashing, but the Colonel rebuffed her with a curt nod, his seamed face darkening. "Dancing? Madam, I march. Gallipoli taught me rhythm enough. Bayonets, not ballrooms." His eyes, hard as flint, strayed to Sir Reginald's back, a muscle twitching in his jaw. Miss Lydia, pausing to purchase a glass of sherbet from a boy with a brass tray, whispered urgently to Reginald as he waited. "Sir, the inventory. Aladdin insists on inspection before payment. And Victor, he's been at the ledgers again." Reginald patted her hand absently. "Steady on, Lydia girl. All shipshape by midnight." The party pressed deeper into the silk market, where bolts of fabric cascaded from shelves like frozen waterfalls. Crimson damasks from Damascus, azure taft from Isfahan, gold-embroidered brocades that caught the light in shimmering waves. Oud music swelled from a circle of musicians, stringed instruments plucking melancholy airs, while dervish beggars spun in ragged robes, palms outstretched. Miss Marple noted a group of porters unloading crates near a dim archway. One, a burly fellow with a scarred cheek, eyed their party with undue interest before vanishing into the gloom. At last they reached Aladdin's stall, a cavernous nook, ablaze with rolled carpets leaning, like colourful sentinels. The merchant himself, Aladdin Effendi, stout and turbaned, with a beard like rippling silk, rose from a low divan, clapping his hands. "Effendim, Sir Reginald, the stars align. Behold, the prayer rugs of Sultan Selim." Servants unrolled the treasures, silken masterpieces woven with arabesques of minarets and cypress trees. Threads fine as spider silk, hues vibrant as a peacock's tail. Sir Reginald knelt, fingers tracing the knots. "Magnificent! 2,000 lira apiece. Deal struck, Kamal." Kamal nodded, producing a leather pouch of coins. "Sealed at midnight, as agreed." But tension crackled. Victor Lang thrust forward, jabbing a finger. "Hold hard! Forgery, Kamal. Those knots are off. I've seen Anatolian fakes from your very looms. Reginald, you're fleeced." Aladdin's face purpled. He sputtered in Turkish, fists clenched. Kamal intervened smoothly, voice like oiled velvet. "Mr. Lang oversteps. Inspect, Effendi. My weaver's honour is iron." Sir Reginald waved them down. "Gad, Victor, stow it. We're partners, not pirates." But his bluff tone rang hollow. Sweat beaded his brow. The argument swelled, drawing a ring of curious merchants. Mrs. Petrova tittered behind her fan, eyes gleaming. Colonel Ramsay snorted, "Bizarre brawls, worse than a sergeant's mess." Lydia shrank back, pale as parchment. Miss Marple, sipping lentil soup from a clay bowl purchased en route, catalogued the discord. Victor's accusation born of desperation. Kamal's poise masking steel, Reginald's unease a chink in his armour. It reminded her of the Danby Dale Harvest Fair, where Farmer Giles accused the miller of short weight, greed's eternal mask. As the stall's brass clock chimed midnight, the bazaar's pulse quickened. Torches flared brighter. A procession of water sellers with goatskin bags jostled past. Sir Reginald turned to shake Aladdin's hand, coins glinting in the pouch. "Done and dusted!" In that instant a scream rent the air, raw and piercing as a scimitar. It came from behind a towering bolt of crimson silk, toppled now across the flagstones. The party surged forward, lanterns swinging wildly. Sir Reginald lay sprawled, face up in the dust, his linen suit stained dark. A curved Turkish dagger, Jamdar blade, ornate hilt of chased silver, protruded from his chest half-deep. Blood pooled, black in the lantern glow, seeping into the silk's folds. His eyes stared sightless at the domed ceiling, mouth agape in eternal surprise. The coin pouch lay beside him, slit open, contents scattered like spilled stars. Chaos erupted. A Latin wailed, tearing his turban. Merchants shouted, "Qatil! Murderer!" Lydia screamed, collapsing against Kamal, who steadied her with a firm arm. Victor Lang retched into a brass urn. Elena Petrova clutched her throat, diamonds forgotten. Colonel Ramsay knelt swiftly, feeling for a pulse that wasn't there. Lady Edith swayed, murmuring, "Reginald! Oh God!" Miss Marple, heart steady as her knitting, needles pushed gently through. "Quiet, everyone. The deed is done. Now for facts." She noted the dagger's hilt, engraved with a crescent moon, familiar from Kamal's earlier display at the villa. The wound, clean, upward thrust, no struggle evident. Footprints in the dust, many, overlapping in the crush. Shouts from the archers, "Police! Police!" Figures in blue uniforms converged, pistols drawn, sealing exits with barked orders. The bazaar, moments ago a riot of life, fell to a stunned hush, lanterns guttering like dying eyes. Inspector Amit Demir arrived like a shadow detaching from the wall, a wiry man of 40, moustache trimmed to a razor line, eyes sharp as a hawk's. He flashed a badge, voice cutting the din. "No one leaves! The market is locked till dawn! Who saw?" Muttered alibis tumbled out amid the circle of suspects, huddled now by the spilled silk. "Victor, I haggled yonder for 10 minutes. Elena, browsing pearls, alone. Colonel, smoked a cigarette, back alley. Lydia, fetched water from the fountain. Kamal, prayed at the mihrab niche. Miss Marple, shawl drawn tight, met Inspector Demir's gaze. A tragic affair, Inspector, but the shadows here hold more than silks." He nodded curtly. "You are? Miss Jane Marple, an English guest." Demir's eyes narrowed. Word of village detectives travelled in diplomatic whispers. "Stay close, madam. Truth unravels slowly in the bazaar." As watchmen herded them to a dim tea-house, low tables, tulip glasses steaming with K, the party sat in stunned silence. Lanterns cast long shadows. The murdered man's blood cooled on the stones outside. Miss Marple sipped her tea, mind threading clues. The toppled silk, the scattered coins, the vanished porter with the scarred cheek. Human folly, she reflected, strikes swiftest at midnight, whether in quiet Danby Dale or this den of Eastern wonders. Outside, the ney flute resumed its mournful tune, as if Istanbul itself wept for the fallen. Chapter 4. The Turkish police arrive. The tea-house at the heart of the silk market was a squat, domed chamber. Its walls hung with faded kilims depicting gazelles fleeing archers, and its low ceiling blackened by decades of Nargile smoke. Braziers glowed with embers, casting wavering shadows that danced like uneasy spirits across the flagstone floor. Tulip-shaped glasses of K steamed on brass trays, their amber liquid trembling in the hands of the huddled guests. The air hung heavy with the residue of tragedy. The acrid tang of blood from the alley beyond mingled with the ever-present bizarre sense of aniseed and damp wool. Outside, the watchmen's boots thudded as they sealed the arched exits with iron chains, their lantern beams slicing the night like scimitars. Inspector Ahmed Demir presided over the assembly from a raised dais, his wiry frame taut as a bowstring beneath the uniform of navy serge and polished buttons. His moustache, trimmed with military precision, quivered as he barked orders in rapid, Turkish to 2 constables, one burly, with a lantern jaw, the other slender and note-taking. A third man, a forensic sergeant in a white smock, knelt in the alley, sketching the corpse's position with chalk and probing the dagger's hilt with tweezers. The bazaar, once a roaring beast, now slumbered under curfew, its merchants peering from half-shuttered stalls like wary owls. "Names, one by one," Demir commanded, his English clipped from years at the Imperial School in Constantinople. His hawk eyes swept the circle. 7 Europeans, pale and dishevelled, seated on threadbare cushions around a scarred ebony table. Lady Edith clutched a lace handkerchief to her lips, her violet toque askew. Miss Lydia Thorne rocked gently, eyes glassy with shock. Mrs. Elena Petrova fanned herself with a pearl-handled fan, though sweat beaded her powdered brow. Mr. Victor Lang mopped his forehead with a silk square, his ferret eyes darting to every exit. Colonel Ramsay sat ramrod straight, fists clenched on his knees. Mr. Kamal Bey lounged with deceptive ease, sipping K as if at a café, and Miss Marple, shawl draped like a Highland plaid, observed with the calm of one appraising a church bazaar raffle. Demir began with Sir Reginald's aunt. "Lady Harrington, you discovered the body." Edith's voice wavered. "No, Inspector. The scream, it was Lydia's. We turned. There he was, my nephew, with that awful knife." The inspector nodded to the slender constable, who scribbled furiously. "And you, Miss Thorne? Your scream? Why, there, behind the silk." Lydia's hands trembled as she spoke, voice a thread. I went for water, sir. The fountain's yonder. Returning, I brushed the bolt. It toppled. Sir Reginald, he was behind it, gasping. I saw the dagger, screamed." Demir's gaze sharpened. Time. The clock struck midnight 5 minutes past. Precisely then, Lydia whispered, the coins scattered everywhere. Next, Victor Lang. The wiry man leaned forward, voice oily with protest. "I was haggling, Inspector, at the brassware stall, 10 paces off. The Armenian there, Hagop, he'll vouch. Asked for a lamp, 10 minutes at most. Heard the row over the carpets, then the scream." Demir signalled the burly constable, who vanished into the gloom, returning minutes later with a swarthy merchant in a striped vest. Hagop nodded vigorously. "Yes, Effendi, the Englishman, bargain hard, very hard. 5 minutes, no more." Victor exhaled, but Demir turned away unmoved. "Mrs. Petrova?" Elena straightened, her throaty accent rolling like the Volga. "Browsing, Inspector. Pearls at Yusuf's stall. Such beauties. Alone, yes, but the boy who sold little Ahmed. 10 minutes, perhaps 12. She smiled, diamonds glinting. The note-taker flipped pages. Another constable fetched a gap-toothed urchin who bobbed his head. "Hanum Effendi by necklace. 1 pearl loose. Midnight sharp she leave." Demir grunted. Colonel Ramsay, the soldier's seamed face hardened. Smoked a cigarette, back alley, private spot by the mihrab niche. 5 minutes, Gallipoli habit, clear the head. Heard nothing till the scream. A witness? Demir pressed. Ramsay shrugged. Dark as pitch. But the dervish beggar, he nodded to me. The inspector dispatched a man. Moments later, a ragged figure in patched robes shuffled in, palms upturned. Effendi smoke, give coin, yes, midnight. Kamal Bey set down his glass, voice smooth as Bursa silk. I prayed, Inspector, at the niche's mihrab. The dagger, from my collection, displayed at the villa this afternoon, stolen, I fear, while we lunched. 5 minutes devotion, a Latin Effendi saw. The merchant, still turbanless and woebegone, confirmed from the doorway. Kamal Bey kneel, pray to Allah, true. Last, Demir eyed Miss Marple. And you, madam, the English observer. Miss Marple folded her hands. With Lady Edith, Inspector, admiring the carpets. The argument drew us close, perhaps 3 minutes from the body. I saw the silk topple, heard the gasp before the scream. He arched a brow. No wanderings. None, sir. I'm not one for midnight rambles. Demir paced, boots echoing. All alibis, cracks like dry earth. 5 minutes each, haggle, browse, smoke, water, pray, admire. Enough for murder. Motives, Victor Lang spluttered first. Me, partners 20 years. But Reginald accused me of dipping ledgers. Lies. That carpet deal was mine. Kamal's forgeries cost us lakhs. Elena laughed bitterly. Fortune? Reginald promised jewels, repaid my late husband's debts, spurned me for her. She jabbed at Lydia, who flinched. The colonel's voice was gravel. Wartime, 15 Gallipoli. Reginald, quartermaster, sold supplies to the Turks. My platoon starved, died, 20 men. Vengeance, perhaps. Lydia gasped. No, Sir Reginald, he was kind. His will, last week, everything to me, secretary. More, but not murder. Kamal spread elegant hands. Partnership dissolved. Reginald reneged on our contract. Carpet's mine, he claimed half. Theft of dagger. Convenient, no? Lady Edith sobbed. Family, who would... Miss Marple sipped her cooling K, mind sifting like village gossip at the post office. Alibis overlapped, yet gaped. Motives tangled like Persian knots. Victor's sweat betrayed fear, not guilt. Elena's drama rang false. Ramsay's grudge burned true. Lydia's pallor hid tears, not treachery. Kamal's calm veiled calculation. The dagger stolen, yes, but whose hand returned it to flesh? Demir straightened. The body moves at dawn, to the morgue. You, all, under guard to the villa. No letters, no calls. Autopsy tomorrow, inquest follows. He signalled constables who herded them toward waiting Fiats, engines rumbling in the pre-dawn chill. As they bundled into the cars, Miss Marple with Edith and Lydia, the chill wind carrying the Ardahn's mournful call. The inspector lingered, staring at the bloodied silk. English ways or Turkish? Murder wears the same face, he muttered to his sergeant, but this one, threads pull many ways. The convoy wound up the hill to Villa Eftal, minarets silhouetted against a sky bleeding pink. Guards posted at the gates. Servants, roused by scandal, whispered in the kitchens. In the drawing room, warmed by a cypress log fire, the party collapsed into armchairs. Coffee arrived, bitter scalding, in tiny cups etched with tulips. Lady Edith poured, hands shaking. Jane, Reginald gone, what now? Miss Marple patted her knee. Patience, dear. Truth emerges like dawn over the strait. That dagger's angle, upward, from behind, strength of a soldier, perhaps. And the coins, slit pouch, yet none taken, not robbery. Victor paced, voice rising. Embezzlement! Reginald framed me, ledgers hidden. Colonel Ramsay stared into the flames. Betrayal's blade cuts deep. Elena lit a cigarette, smoke curling. Love spurned, fortune lost. Lydia wept silently. He trusted me. Kamal examined a signet ring, voice soft. Honour demands justice. Miss Marple knitted a single row, needles clicking like a metronome. In Danby Dale, the baker's wife had poisoned her rival over a burnt loaf. Greed masked as affection. Here, Silks hid sharper poisons. She recalled the scarred-cheek porter, vanished in the crush. A hireling? And Lydia's hem, slightly muddied, as if from a scuffle. Dawn gilded the Bosphorus as Demir arrived, dossier under arm. Miss Marple, you watch, assist if you will. Turkish law welcomes English eyes. She inclined her head. Gladly, Inspector. Folly knows no borders. Outside, gulls wheeled over the strait, indifferent to the night's harvest. The investigation dawned, threads tightening in the villa's gilded web. Chapter 5. Whispers of the Bazaar. The first light of dawn crept over the Bosphorus like a tentative suitor, gilding the minarets of Istanbul in hues of rose and amber. Villa Eftal stirred uneasily under the weight of its grief. Servants padded silently through the corridors, drawing heavy brocade curtains against the intrusive sun. The air in the morning room carried the bitter aroma of cardamom coffee, and the faint cloying sweetness of attar of roses from Lady Edith's untouched vanity. Inspector Ahmet Demir had departed at cockcrow with Sir Reginald's remains, his Fiat's churning gravel as they bore the body to the French hospital's morgue for autopsy. The remaining party, confined by his edict, dispersed to their chambers like actors awaiting a curtain rise, each nursing private tempests behind closed doors. Miss Marple, however, sought the open air. At 7 o'clock, shawl pinned firmly and a pair of stout walking shoes laced tight, she descended to the villa's terrace gardens. The grounds sloped steeply to the cliff's edge, a mosaic of lemon groves, fountains tinkling over mosaic tiles, and arbour seats carved from white marble. Cypress trees whispered in the breeze, their shadows striping the gravel paths like prison bars. She paused at a wrought-iron bench overlooking the strait, where ferries plied their ceaseless routes, and a lone Caïque fisherman cast his nets. The Bosphorus murmured below, indifferent to the night's violence. Settling with her knitting, now a simple grey scarf for the villa's Greek maid, Miss Marple let her mind unspool the threads of the case. The dagger's upward thrust suggested a killer of medium height, striking from behind in the silk shelter. The scattered coins, untouched, bespoke rage, not greed. The toppled bolt implied deliberate staging. It recalled the Danby Dale cricket match of 22, where old Mrs. Hargreaves had poisoned her rival's tea over a disputed jam recipe. Malice cloaked in domesticity. Human nature, she murmured to a curious lizard sunning on the stone, is a universal garden. Weeds sprout everywhere. Footsteps crunched behind her. Lady Edith approached, her face drawn, a cashmere wrap clutched tight against the morning chill. She sank onto the bench, voice hushed. Jane, I couldn't sleep. The servants' gossip, whispers of curses on the carpets, and Reginald's will. I must tell you. Miss Marple's needles paused. From the beginning, dear, wills often untie the tightest knots. Edith drew a deep breath. Last Tuesday, at the British consulate, Reginald summoned his solicitor, Mr. Ellis from Pera. He changed everything. Formally, shares to Victor as partner, bequests to me, the Colonel's Veterans Fund, even Eleanor's jewels. Now, all to Lydia. The villa, the business, £100,000. She's earned it, he said. Loyalty, he called it. But her eyes, they shone too bright. Miss Marple nodded thoughtfully. Loyalty or affection? Young hearts beat swiftly. Did others know? Victor stormed in that evening, accused embezzlement, waving ledgers. Reginald laughed it off, but locked his study. Edith's fan trembled. The Colonel called next day, ranting of Gallipoli debts unpaid. Elena sent a note, pleading for her allowance. A bell tolled from the Yenny Kami across the water, the call to morning prayer. Miss Marple rose. Come, Edith, a stroll to the Hill Market. Fresh air clears the cobwebs. They descended by funicular to the waterfront, then wandered the narrow lanes of Galata, where fishmongers gutted mullet on marble slabs and simmet vendors cried their sesame rings. At the Hilltop Bazaar, a modest satellite to the Grand, an urchin darted up, thrusting a crumpled note into Miss Marple's hand. For the English Hannum, from the shadows, Blue Mosque, noon, come alone. The paper bore spidery Turkish script, translated by a passing dragoman. The crimson silk hides the truth. Miss Marple folded it away, her pulse steady. Human whispers, she said to Edith, often carry the loudest truths. Return to the villa. Say nothing. Lady Edith protested, but Miss Marple was firm. At 11:30, she hired a droshky, its horse clopping over the Galata Bridge amid trams and handcarts. The Blue Mosque loomed ahead, its 6 minarets piercing the sky, domes swelling like azure bubbles. Tourists milled at the gates, but Miss Marple slipped through a side portal into the vast hyperstyle hall. Sunbeams shafted through stained-glass cartouches, illuminating carpets worn smooth by a millennium of knees. The air hummed with murmured devotions. A lone imam chanted from the mihrab. In a shadowed corner, by a colonnade of porphyry pillars, crouched a beggar, ragged kaftan, face obscured by a cowl. He extended a grimy palm, but as Miss Marple approached, he pressed something into her hand. A scrap of crimson silk, no larger than a handkerchief, stiff with dried blood. Embroidered in one corner, L.T. Lydia Thorne. The silk bolt, the beggar rasped in broken English, fell not alone. The girl, she pushed, hid this in 'em. Saw her take dagger from shadows. Coins to mock? Go, more eyes watch. Miss Marple slipped the fabric into her reticule, pressing a lira into his palm. Who sent you? Master of carpets, no name, truth for justice. He melted into the throng of worshippers. Back at the villa by 1 o'clock, Miss Marple found turmoil in the salon. Victor Lang burst from the library, face puce, brandishing a leather ledger. Embezzlement! Reginald's accounts falsified! I am ruined, framed by that Turk! He slammed it down, pages splaying to reveal columns of figures. Silks overstated, spices short. Colonel Ramsay, polishing his pipe by the window, snorted. Wartime ledgers, Lang. Reginald sold my regiment's rations to Enver Pasha. Starved us at Suvla Bay. 20 graves I dug. Last night, justice served cold. Across the room, Mrs. Elena Petrova reclined on a divan, a cigarette holder poised like a sceptre. Tears streaked her rouge as she wept theatrically. My jewels! Insured? Pah! Reginald pawned them for his chit of a secretary. Promised marriage, fortune, spurned me. I wrote begging. He burned the letter. Miss Lydia hovered by the tea-tray, pouring with unsteady hands. Her eyes, red-rimmed, avoided the scrap in Miss Marple's mind. Mr. Kamal Bey entered last, carrying a vellum contract, its edges frayed. Forged? No, Inspector. Unsigned by Reginald. He disputed our partnership, claimed carpets his alone. I brought it to the bazaar, confrontation, but murder, not my hand. Servants announced luncheon. Trays of cold yogurt soup, stuffed vine leaves, and grilled quail under silver domes. The party ate in strained silence, forks scraping like accusations. Inspector Demir arrived midway, his dossier thicker, face grave. "Autopsy complete," he announced, seating himself. "Death instant, blade to heart, no poison, time 12:03. Now, motives confirmed." He ticked off on fingers. Victor's ledgers balanced clean, Reginald's accusation a bluff. Elena's jewels insured threefold, claim filed yesterday. Kamal's contract genuine, but Reginald had initialed a copy at the consulate. The colonel shifted. "My grudge proven, supplies sold, documents in my trunk." Lydia paled. "The will, it's true, but—" "Loved him?" Demir eyed her sharply. "Miss Thorne, mud on your hem last night. Explain." Before she could stammer, Miss Marple intervened softly. "Allow me, Inspector." She withdrew the silk scrap, holding it to the light. Gasps rippled. "LT, Lydia's monogram, from the crimson bolt, pushed deliberately to conceal." Victor gaped. Elena smirked. Kamal's eyes narrowed. Lydia burst into sobs. I hid it, but not murder. Elena, she cornered me at the fountain. "Carry this dagger," she said, "or no will." Blackmailed. Promised I'd wed Reginald after. In the crush, she took it back, struck while I fetched water. Elena laughed, throaty and defiant. "Lies! The girl fancies him, wills her prize." Demir signalled constables, who searched handbags and hems. From Eleanor's reticule, a second scrap of silk, bloodied. "Yours, madam," the Russian wilted. "For protection." Miss Marple smiled faintly. "Not the killer's hand, perhaps, but threads connect. Inspector, summon reconstruction at dusk. The bazaar whispers more." As afternoon waned, cypress shadows lengthening, the party prepared. Miss Marple knitted steadily, mind alight. Lydia's hem, Elena's threat, bait for bigger fish. The scarred porter, hired eyes, and the colonel's pipe, fresh tobacco in his pocket, unsmoked. Gallipoli's ghosts walked still. Outside, the Bosphorus gleamed, a silver vein pulsing with secrets. The whispers of the bazaar were far from stilled. Chapter 6. Tangled threads unravel. The sun hung low over the Bosphorus as the motor cars rumbled back toward the Grand Bazaar, their headlamps piercing the twilight like wary eyes. Inspector Ahmed Demir sat rigidly in the lead Fiat, his dossier clutched under one arm, while Miss Marple occupied the seat beside him, her knitting bag on her lap and the crimson silk scrap tucked safely within. Behind, the second car bore Lady Edith, pale as marble, and Miss Lydia Thorne, whose tear-streaked face betrayed a fragility bordering on collapse. The remaining vehicle carried Victor Lang, still muttering over his exonerated ledgers. Mrs. Elena Petrova, fanning herself with theatrical vigour. Colonel Ramsay, pipe clenched unlit between his teeth. And Mr. Kamal Bey, whose inscrutable gaze fixed on the passing minarets as if reading an ancient script. The bazaar gates yawned open under guard, the arched vaults now starkly illuminated by police lanterns strung like garlands of judgment. Merchants had shuttered their stalls for the night, but Aladdin Effendi waited at his post, turban restored, flanked by 2 constables. The air, cooler now, carried the ghosts of the previous midnight. Faint echoes of oud strings from distant cafes, and the persistent undercurrent of roasting hazelnuts from a lone vendor defying curfew. The crimson silk bolt lay as found, roped off with yellow cord, its folds stiff and accusing. "Reconstruction," Demir announced crisply, his voice echoing off the domes. "Positions exact. Clock set to midnight. No deviations. Proceed, or justice sleeps." The party arrayed themselves. Sir Reginald's absence marked by a chalk outline on the flagstones, dagger haft sketched in white. Kamal Bey stood by the carpet rolls, pouch of coins in hand. Aladdin bowed theatrically, unrolling a prayer rug. Victor Lang positioned himself at the brassware stall 10 paces distant. Hagop the Armenian summoned as witness. Mrs. Petrova drifted to Yusuf's pearl trays, little Ahmed the urchin hovering. Colonel Ramsay slouched toward the mihrab niche's alley, the dervish beggar materializing from shadows. Miss Lydia moved to the fountain, brass ewer in hand. Lady Edith and Miss Marple lingered by the carpets, 3-minute stroll from the body. A constable wound the stall clock. Its chime told midnight. "Begin!" Demir barked. Victor haggled loudly. 5 lira, no more, glancing at Hagop, who nodded. Elena cooed over pearls, dropping one deliberately. Ahmed scampered to retrieve. Ramsay lit his pipe, puffing clouds into the alley, the dervish accepting a coin. Lydia dipped her ewer, water glugging, then turned back, pausing at the silk bolt. "Observe," Miss Marple said softly, her voice carrying like a village bell. She stepped forward, shawl rustling. "Not accident. See the angle. Bolt toppled from behind, deliberate push. Weight shifts forward. Silk unfurls like a curtain. Killer waits in shelter. Strikes upward. Height 5'10", strength controlled." Now the gasp before scream. Lydia heard it close. Lydia froze, ewer trembling. I turned the corner. The silk moved. Pushed. I saw a shadow. Victor blustered from his stall, voice shrill. "Rubbish, I was bargaining. Hagop swears." Elena tittered, fanning faster. "Shadows? I saw nothing. Pearls blinded me." The colonel exhaled smoke, eyes flinty. "Alley clear. Pipe proves it." Kamal Bey smiled faintly. "Prayer absolves. Dagger stolen. My loss." Demir signalled halt. The clock stopped at 12:03. Alibis hold, yet corpse lies. Search hems pockets, full. Constables swarmed like efficient ants. Victor's pockets yielded a clean handkerchief, no blood. Elena's reticule disgorged lipstick, a pearl, and the second silk scrap, now joined to Miss Marple's, forming a handkerchief-sized whole. Colonel Ramsay's drill jacket bore tobacco crumbs, pipe ash clean. Kamal's suit was pristine, save a prayer bead. Lydia's hem, however, yielded bounty. Faint blood specks under microscope light from a portable lantern. And, tucked in the lining, a folded will extract, dated Tuesday, Reginald's signature bold. She gasped as it fluttered free. "Mine! He gave it! Proof!" Miss Marple turned to her, needles stilled, voice gentle as spring rain. "My dear, in Danby Dale, young Sarah hid her lover's letter in just such a hem, fearing prying eyes. You did the same with this will. But the dagger? Fingerprints, Inspector." Demir produced a glassine envelope from his dossier. "Lab report, prints on hilt, Lydia Thorns, clear as day. Worlds match." The girl crumpled, sobbing. "Not murder! Elena, she cornered me at the fountain before. Carry this," she hissed, dagger cold in my palm. "Deliver to Reginald after the deal, or the will burns." Blackmailed! Promised I'd wed him once free. I hid it in my sleeve, passed it back in the crush by the spices. She struck, I swear. Elena's laugh cracked like thin ice. "Lies from a fortune hunter. The chit killed for her prize will prove's greed." But Miss Marple shook her head, eyes mild yet piercing. "No, Elena, your drama is a mask, but strength betrays. The thrust, upward, powerful, from a taller frame. You, madam, scarce 5'4". Lydia, 5'2". Observe the wound angle, measured at morgue 45 degrees, man's arm, and your alibi. Ahmed says you left pearls at 12:1, not 12:3. The Russian paled, fan dropping. I browsed longer. Demir nodded to Ahmed, who piped up. No, Hannum, gone to shadows by clock chime end. Victor sneered. Tangled as my ledgers, but mine clear, Reginald's bluff. Kamal interjected smoothly. The dagger, returned how? My collection case, latched tight post-theft. Miss Marple smiled, withdrawing a final clue from her reticule. A single pipe ash flake, procured from the alley during reconstruction. Colonel, your pipe, fresh tobacco in pocket, unsmoked last night. Gallipoli blend, rare here. Ash in alley? None. You lingered. Ramsay's jaw set. Nonsense. Dervish saw... The dervish, Miss Marple continued. Paid by you, a coin for silence. But witnesses abound. The water seller saw a khaki figure emerge at 12:2, hastening. Demir snapped fingers. The goatskin carrier shuffled forward. Yes, Effendi, soldier man, run from mihrab, dropped silk scrap, fleeing. Colonel Ramsay's hand twitched toward his pocket. Kamal Bey moved like lightning, pinning his arm. Enough, Colonel. Honour ends here. Searches deepened. Ramsay's trunk at Villa yielded Gallipoli letters. Reginald's betrayal documented, Ration's ledger forged. Victor's innocence confirmed anew. Elena's insurance fraud exposed in cable from London. Kamal's contract upheld. Partnership dissolved amicably pre-murder. Lydia's prince? From handling under duress. Elena's threat witnessed by a spice boy, now fetched. The party gasped as Demir cuffed the colonel lightly. But confession, Miss Marple addressed them all, voice steady. Threads untangle thus. Elena blackmails Lydia for dagger carry, jealousy's tool. Colonel, you steal it earlier from Kamal's case, revenge planned. In alley, you emerge, take dagger from Lydia's passing crush, strike from silk's shadow. Coins slit to mimic robbery, silk toppled to hide. Flee, drop scrap, Gallipoli's debt paid in blood. Ramsay sagged, moustache drooping. Damn you, old woman, 20 men, starved by his greed. I waited, watched, blade true, upward, as in bayonet drill. Demir nodded. Alibis cracked. Dervish recants for Lyra, your pipe ash absent. Justice! The colonel was led away, head high, as lanterns dimmed. Victor clapped Kamal's shoulder, partnership renewed. Elena wilted, fraud charges looming. Lydia embraced Lady Edith, will secure but heartbroken. Miss Marple gathered her shawl. Folly weaves tightest in shadows, but truth cuts clean. As cars bore them homeward, the bazaar sighed relief, merchants reopening stalls. Istanbul's pulse resumed, unbroken, eternal. Chapter 7. The Midnight Confession. The Grand Bazaar's vaulted domes loomed overhead like the vault of a cathedral in judgment, their shadows pooling deep as the constables led Colonel Hugh Ramsay away in the flickering lantern light. His khaki drill jacket hung loose on his defeated frame, wrists bound loosely with leather thongs rather than irons, Turkish courtesy to a fallen soldier. The party stood in stunned tableau amid the roped-off silk bolt and chalked outline. Victor Lang's ferret eyes wide with vindication. Mrs. Elena Petrova's fan stilled her throat, diamonds dull in the gloom. Miss Lydia Thorne clinging to Lady Edith's arm, her pale frock smudged with bazaar dust. Mr. Kamal Bey adjusting his cravat with unruffled poise, and Inspector Ahmed Demir, moustache firm, directing his men to dismantle the reconstruction with efficient snaps of his fingers. The air, thick with the night's chill, carried the distant toll of a mosque clock, 12:30, the witching hour reborn. Miss Marple, her shawl drawn close against the damp, stepped forward into the circle of light cast by a single police lantern. Its flame danced, illuminating the Colonel's seamed face as he paused at the archway, flanked by 2 burly constables. "One moment, Inspector," she said mildly, her voice cutting the hush like a needle through cloth. "A confession, Colonel Ramsay, is the cleanest thread of all, but allow the full weave. Midnight demands it." Demir hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Proceed, madam. Truth waits for no man." He gestured, and the Colonel was brought back to the centre, where a low divan from a Latin stall served as an impromptu throne of reckoning. The merchant himself hovered at the edge, turban askew, murmuring prayers under his breath. The remaining merchants, peering from half-open shutters, formed a silent Greek chorus, their faces etched with the awe of witnesses to fate. Ramsay sank onto the cushions, his ramrod posture crumbling. The lantern's glow caught the silver in his clipped moustache and the deep lines carved by Gallipoli's son. He stared at the chalked outline, Sir Reginald's ghost, and his voice emerged hoarse, like gravel under boots. "Very well, Miss Marple. You've unravelled it cleaner than a sergeant's kit. Gallipoli, 15. I was captain then, 3rd Battalion, Anzac Cove. Reginald Harrington, quartermaster, fresh from Sandhurst. Supplies came short, bully beef, biscuits, water. My platoon, 20 good lads, dug trenches under Turkish guns, bellies empty. I sent dispatches. Urgent, resupply. Answers, delays at Mudros. Lies." He paused, drawing a ragged breath. The party leaned in. Even Elena's fan lay forgotten. "Found his ledger one night. Camp raid. Rations sold to Enver Pasha's agents. Gold sovereigns by the sack. Turks ate our bully, while my boys chewed leather belts. 20 graves I marked. Private Ellis, shot foraging. Sergeant Kane, fever. The twins bayoneted in a sally. Reginald sailed home a hero. I buried them in chalk soil." Victor's voice cracked the silence. "But the ledgers last night, clean." Ramsay's laugh was bitter bark. "Business ledgers, yes. War's buried deeper. I came to Istanbul last month. Tracked him through Periclubs. The villa invitation. Bait he swallowed, thinking old chum. But I watched. Dagger in Kamal's case, sharp as memory. Slipped it at luncheon, case unlatched, easy as pickpocket." Miss Marple nodded, needles clicking softly in her lap. She had resumed knitting, a rhythmic counterpoint to confession. "And the alley plan? Aye, midnight struck. I feigned smoke, slipped to Mihrab. Saw Elena corner Lydia. Dagger passed like contraband. Crush built. I emerged, took it from the girl's sleeve. 'For the lads,' I whispered. Silk bolt my blind. Pushed it as he turned, coins pouch in sight. Upward thrust, bayonet style, heart true. Slit pouch, scattered gold, robbery's mask. Fled, dropped LT scrap in haste. Dervish, coin for nod." Lydia whimpered, burying her face in Edith's shoulder. "You used me." Elena stirred, voice venomous. "Coward, hid behind my jealousy, my threats mere play." Demir held up a hand. "Your part, madam. Insurance fraud, blackmail, cells await." A constable advanced. Elena recoiled, but her chin lifted defiantly. "Bah! Reginald deserved scorn, not blade. But yes, I forced the chit, dreaming his ring on my finger." Kamal Bey spoke for the first time, voice like polished onyx. "My dagger, avenged in blood, not mine. Partnership dissolves cleanly now, Victor. Carpets to London, half shares." Victor mopped his brow. relief flooding his sallow face. "By Jove, yes, no more shadows." Lady Edith stepped forward, tears silvering her cheeks. "Hugh, we danced at Cheltenham '09. How fell you so?" Ramsay met her gaze, eyes softening fractionally. "War twists men, Edith, but justice? Tonight's my court-martial." He rose as constables closed in, submitting without struggle. At the archway, he turned once. "Miss Marple, village ways outfoxed a soldier. Fair play." The Fiats purred to life, bearing him into the night toward the Sariburnu prison, minarets watching like sentinels. Demir turned to the party, dossier closed, case sealed, autopsy matches, witnesses fixed. Colonel confesses full, Gallipoli papers from his trunk corroborate. You, freed at dawn, statements tomorrow. He bowed slightly to Miss Marple. "Madam, your eye sharper than my best blade. English tea, perhaps, when done?" She smiled faintly. "Case suffices, Inspector. Truth brews hot anywhere." The convoy wound uphill to Villa Eftal, stars pricking the velvet sky. Inside, the salon glowed with candlelight. Servants, roused by scandal's whisper, laid a cold collation, labneh with cucumber, pide loaves warm from the oven, and trays of locum in rose and pistachio. The party gathered round the mahogany table, exhaustion mingling with catharsis. Lady Edith poured Reiki into thimble glasses, her hand steadier now. "To Reginald, bluff to the end." Glasses chimed, a requiem tintinnabulation. Victor raised his, voice jovial once more. "And to new deals. Kamal, those Heracles, shipped Friday." Kamal inclined his head. "Sealed, Effendi, honour restored." Lydia, composed, touched Edith's arm. "Aunt, the will I shan't contest. Half to you, the Veterans Fund." Reginald's heart was generous. Edith embraced her. "Child, your family now. The villa yours by right." Elena, under guard in a corner armchair, sneered softly. "Fortune's wheel turns. Mine crushed." Miss Marple sipped her raki, its anise bite sharp on the tongue. "Wheels turn, yes, but folly's the axle, greed, grudge, glamour. In Danby Dale, the vicar's wife coveted a neighbour's peonies. Here, empires fall for silks. Yet confession writes the spin." Dawn's first blush crept through the French windows, painting the Bosphorus in molten silver. Gulls cried over the strait, ferries stirring to life. Inspector Demir took his leave with a final bow, promising papers by noon. Servants cleared the table. The party dispersed to chambers, sleep claiming the weary. Miss Marple lingered, gazing at the water. "Midnight confessions," she murmured to the empty room. "Echo longest, but morning brings tea and home." Outside, Istanbul awoke, muezzins calling, keeks slicing the current, the bazaar stirring to hawk its endless wares. The murder's shadow lifted, leaving justice's clean dawn. Chapter 8. Justice on the Bosphorus. The first rays of dawn gilded the minarets of Istanbul, as if brushing them with sovereigns, transforming the Bosphorus into a ribbon of molten silver that wound between continents like a serpent sated on secrets. Villa Eftal, perched on its cliffside throne, exhaled the night's burdens with the morning breeze. Windows flung wide to admit the salt-tanged air. Servants scouring the salon floors, where shadows of scandal had lingered till cock-crow. The mahogany table, now stripped of its collation, gleamed afresh under beeswax polish. Silver coffee pots bubbled on the sideboard, their cardamom-scented steam curling like genies released from lamps. Outside, the garden stirred, lemon trees heavy with fruit, fountains murmuring over azure tiles, and cypresses standing sentinel against the awakening sky. In the sunlit salon, The remnants of the party gathered one final time, their faces etched with the hollow relief of survivors. Lady Edith Harrington presided at the head of the table, her violet silk morning gown immaculate once more, pearls restrung and composure restored. She poured tiny cups of Turkish coffee, thick as mud and sweet as vindication, her hands steady as she passed them round. "To new beginnings," she said softly, her voice carrying the timbre of one who had buried a nephew but reclaimed a family. "Reginald would approve." Miss Lydia Thorne sat to her right, no longer the pale shadow of midnight, but a young woman with quiet resolve, her mousy hair neatly coiled, and a simple locket, Reginald's gift, at her throat. She accepted her cup with a nod. "Aunt Edith, the will, as I said, half to you for the villa's upkeep, a quarter to the Gallipoli Veterans Fund, ironic justice perhaps, but his name on it. The rest, charities he favoured. I shan't live on shadows." Edith's eyes misted, but she squeezed Lydia's hand. "Generous heart, child. Your mistress here now, if you wish. Or return to England. The choice is yours." Across the table, Mr. Victor Lang lounged with unaccustomed ease, his pinstripe suit brushed clean of bazaar dust, ferret eyes bright with commerce's dawn. He raised his cup to Mr. Kamal Bey, seated opposite in a crisp linen suit, cravat knotted like a Gordian resolution. "Kamal, old chap, partners anew. Those Heraki carpets ship Friday. London auction nets us double. No more unpaid chits, clean slate." Kamal Bey's smile was a crescent of genuine warmth, his black eyes reflecting the straight's sparkle. "Agreed, Effendi. Honour binds tighter than contract. My weavers rejoice. A Latin sends regards, and a prayer rug for the villa. Gratis." He inclined his head to Lady Edith. "Peace restores trade." Mrs. Elena Petrova occupied a corner chaise, her voluptuous form diminished under a guard's watchful eye. The emerald chiffon was replaced by a plain serge dress, diamonds confiscated, her throaty laugh silenced to a sullen pout. Inspector Demir had arrived at first light with warrants. Insurance fraud proven by Lloyd's cables. Blackmail evidenced by the Spice Boy's affidavit. "Deported tomorrow," he had declared, moustache firm. "Russia awaits its widow." She sipped her coffee black, gaze venomous on Lydia. "Fortune's jest. You inherit. I, the vulgar's mud, but Reginald's spurn. It stings eternal." Demir, stationed by the French windows, notebook closed for the last time, cleared his throat. "Formalities complete. Colonel Ramsay, indicted for murder. Gallipoli papers filed as aggravation. Trial next month. Life likely. Statement signed. You all free to depart. Miss Marple." He bowed low, a rare flourish. "Turkish justice owes you. A medal, perhaps, or simply thank you." Miss Marple, seated by the window in her sprigged cotton and shawl, set down her knitting, a completed grey scarf, folded neatly beside her. Her mild blue eyes swept the room, appraising each face as she might the Danbydale Women's Institute after a successful jumble sale. "No medals, Inspector. Truth illuminates best without fanfare. Villages or bazaars, folly is the same. Greed blinds the eye, grudge hardens the heart, glamour veils the blade. But observation unties it all. A glance too sharp, a hem too muddied, a pipe unsmoked. Reginald's end, a lesson in follies universal." She turned to the assembly, voice gentle as a vicar's homily. "Victor, your ledger's cleared not by chance, but honesty tested. Elena, jewels insured threefold, greed's own trap. Lydia, affection true, not avarice, your generosity honours him. Kamal, partnerships thrive on trust, not forgery's shadow. Edith, family endures, and the Colonel, War's ghosts demand no jury. Justice on the Bosphorus flows clean as its current. Lady Edith rose, embracing her old friend with fervour. "Jane, you've saved us, more than life. The villa, the business, our souls. Stay longer. The steamer waits a week." Miss Marple patted her back, smiling faintly. "Dear Edith, Istanbul's wonders enchant, but nothing beats a quiet English tea, scones with clotted cream, robins at the feeder. Danby Dale calls. My nephew Raymond's socks await finishing, yet a promise to return, for whist perhaps." Laughter rippled, Victor's bray, Kamal's soft chuckle, even Elena's reluctant sniff. Lydia pressed a small parcel into Miss Marple's hands, a silken handkerchief, embroidered with Bosphorus waves. "For your reticule, Miss Marple, gratitude woven." By 10 o'clock, the salon emptied to farewells on the terrace. Victor and Kamal departed in a hired Fiat, bound for the docks, carpets crated, futures sealed. Elena, escorted to a Pera hotel, cast a final glare from the motor's window. Lady Edith and Lydia waved from the portico, silhouettes against the climbing sun. Inspector Demir conveyed Miss Marple to the pier in his official launch, the Bosphorus parting like silk before its prow. Caïques bobbed alongside, fishermen hauling nets silver with sardines. Ferries tooted salutes as they passed Galata Bridge, where simmet sellers balanced trays on heads. The Golden Horn glittered, Santa Sophia's domes swelling majestic against the azure vault. At the quay, the steamer Eurus loomed, gangplank lowered amid porters' cries. Demir assisted her aboard, saluting sharply. "Safe voyage, madam. Istanbul forgets no friend." Miss Marple inclined her head from the deck. "Nor Danby Dale. Farewell, Inspector. May your cases unravel as swiftly." As the Eurus cast off amid waving handkerchiefs and tooting horns, she stood at the rail, reticule clutched, the Bosphorus receding in panoramic glory. Minarets faded to ivory needles. The bazaar's domes merged into a hazy mirage. Caïques dwindled to water beetles. The wind freshened, carrying faint echoes of the Adan and Oud melodies. "Istanbul's markets teach well," she murmured to the spray, unfolding the silken handkerchief to catch the sun. "Silks conceal, spices intoxicate, carpets hide daggers, but human nature. Ah, that's the true labyrinth. Greed, grudge, glamour, same in every port, yet truth's needle pricks through." A steward appeared with a tray. English tea, scones and strawberry jam, Edith's parting gift. Miss Marple settled into a deck chair, needles resuming their click-click. The scarf for Maria completed. Next, Raymond's socks. England loomed on the horizon, hedgerows and church bells calling. The case closed as the strait slipped astern. Justice served, threads severed, follies forgiven. Miss Jane Marple, sleuth of villagers and viziers alike, sailed homeward, mind quiet, heart content, the Bosphorus sparkling in her wake like a benediction.